Welcome to the Recovery Toolkit podcast. I'm Richie. I'm going to be your host. Throughout the series, we're going to talk to a range of different people who will give you tools and tips to help manage your recovery. The podcast itself is being brought to you by Epic Restart Foundation, who are a national charity who support people to rebuild a positive life after gambling. So welcome back to the Recovery Toolkit podcast. This episode, I'm joined by Poppy. Poppy, I've heard a lot about you. I don't know much about you, but I've heard a lot about you. I've never met you before other than at one event when you agreed to come on a podcast, which for me shows the type of person you are. You're just willing to give it a go, you know, and you might be sitting there a bit nervous. You might be thinking, oh God, why am I doing this? But actually I think there's a lot of hope and inspiration to come from this chat. So just be honest, say whatever you want to say, and let's see where it goes. Tell us a little bit about Poppy. Who are you? Where are you from? Tell us a little bit about childhood journey.
I was brought up in Middlesbrough. Growing up, I had two parents as addicts, using addicts. I had two brothers that I was brought up with, so there was 2 years between us all. Me mum and dad were on heroin. I remember it being younger. You know, when I look back, I have flashbacks now of what it looked like. And then, as time went on, we had to get adopted by me nana and me nana's husband. So we went to live with them one by one. We didn't all go at once because back then the social system wasn't really aware of stuff like that and didn't have things in place. And me mum went on to have another kid and me dad went on to have a few more. So yeah, growing up, you know, it wasn't the nicest of places to be. I had two sisters that were on drugs. So they were me mum's biological sisters, but because I was brought up thinking that they were my sisters, so I watched them in and out of drugs. I obviously had contact with me mum and dad, and they were always under the influence when I went to see them. So substance use was all I ever seen growing up, you know, and it was all I ever grew up around when I think back. I started drinking at a young age. That's what I can tell you when I look back on my journey. I started drinking at a young age, and obviously drink is a drug to me today because I can't just have a drink. Yeah, drink's a drug to me today. So, yeah, growing up, that's what it was like. You know, it was very chaotic upbringing. We got all the financial stuff. We got everything like that. We went on holidays. I've been to America 4 times with me mum and dad who brought me up. But I always knew there was something, you know, I never felt right as a kid. I never fit in anywhere. I struggled at school. I couldn't sit in a classroom environment. If I'm dead honest, I still struggle to do it now. So yeah, that's a little bit about my upbringing. And
I mean, there's so much you could delve into there if we wanted. What did that lead to in teenage years, and you know, as you came into adulthood? What did that look like for you?
I watched my parents, I watched my mum go through domestic violence relationships. I watched half the women in my family was in domestic violence relationships. So what then become attractive to me was domestically violent men. And that's what I chased, believe it or not. It's crazy that when I say it out loud, it's like, that sounds insane. But back then it sounded really attractive. That's my honesty. So I moved on to a traveller site when I was 15 or 16, and it was a really good idea at the time, you know. And the abuse started about 6 weeks in. And I really thought at that time, I've landed. He really, really loves me. You know, that's what I believed. And so that led to using more drugs, different drugs. And that led to me not being able to stop. So what then become is a weekend thing where I began to take drugs weekend, week out, like it was normal. You know, live for a Friday, basically. Can't wait until Friday. But then Fridays stopped coming and Mondays started coming and so on. I then went from there and made a great decision that I would move to Mask, which is near Redcar and that, with my auntie to get away. That didn't last very long, you know, because wherever I went, I took me with me, you know, and it was me who was the problem. It was me that was chasing all that stuff that I thought was attractive. So I continued to chase that. So I went to Liverpool. I went to Liverpool with my little girl, and I really thought that this is time for change, you know. And I got in another relationship there that was also controlling and domestically violent. And that led a pattern that didn't stop until I got into recovery. In all of that was lots of drug use and lots of chaos and lots of abuse, you know, from me and to me from others. And my drug use progressed. I went from someone who used on a weekend, spent all the money and left my little girl with absolutely nothing. Things I said I'd never do, I'd done, to then being daily tablet user. You know, I was a daily tablet user to maintain who I was. And I remember always thinking, you know, like, I won't do with this little girl what my mum did to me. And my honesty is I did exactly the same, but worse, because the difference between me and my biological mum is that we got took off her, you know, before it actually got really too late, where my little girl was in all that with me. She was in every domestic violence relationship. She suffered the same things as I did because she was seeing it. So my life was very chaotic. You know, I travelled around to get away from me, forgetting that I was coming with me for a long time. And I actually believed it at the time, you know, and I used to get up on a morning, and I used to think, today I won't touch anything, you know, try my best not to touch anything today, and I really believed that. If I'd had a lie detector test, I'd have passed, but it never ended that way. Always ended up in some chaos, and you know, I never thought that it was, when I look back now at all the domestic violence relationships I've been in, I never thought that they weren't normal. I was never taught that they weren't normal. Me mum and dad suffered. They used to get... So when I used to move, right, into a different area, my kid's dad, who I moved in with young, used to slice their tyres. So then I used to have to come back from wherever I was to make sure that wouldn't happen again and move back on with him. And I spent my life like that, you know, like I still had a heart somewhere where I thought I don't want anyone else to be affected by this. But it affected the full family, you know, a lot more than I thought it did.
You've said a lot there, Poppy. Take a breath, I think. And I've heard a lot of stories. The thing that's running through all that for me is like, do you deep down feel like that was like your core belief, that, you know, that's what you'd been around in, this is what, you know, families look like, this is the core belief that's ingrained in me, that domestic violence is just part of life and part of my identity, and that's kind of what I crave because I'm okay in it. I can deal with it. I can live in it. And I think that's sometimes what comes across from a lot of people. They talk about the chaos. And when I say, well, what did you get from that? They're like, well, what do you mean? I didn't get anything. But when you think about it, you did, don't you? We do. If we know we can survive in this, that's actually a more comfortable place than being in recovery, for example, where we're like, what the fuck's going on here? Yeah. You know, so we go back to them places where we feel belonging. And that's what I'm hearing from you is through your childhood and through your, you know, your teens, that actually you found this place where you knew it was chaotic, but actually it felt like that's where I belonged at that time. It felt
safe.
Yeah.
That's my
And
honesty.
it's crazy, isn't it? It feels safe, but now looking back on it, it was so chaotic.
Yeah.
That's the only word we can describe. And for me, just to sit there and be in the place you're in now, which we'll get onto, looking back and being able to share that so openly and honestly, I think takes a lot of courage. So give yourself a pat on the back first and foremost for being able to do that. Tell us about, you know, don't have to go into loads of detail, but what was the turning point?
So, I was practically living with someone I got drugs off. And it was like a daily beg. Do you know, that's what it felt like. But at the time, I just wanted drugs and that was the way it was. And I remember my little girl's nana phoned me and said, you look like you've lost loads of weight. I'm going to take it a man. And I was like, how long for? And she was like, just a week. So it got worse from there, you know, because then I didn't have no one to take home and sort out. And that responsibility was took off me. And in that week, I ended up violently attacking this man. Not obviously setting out to. So then I'd lost all of that. That had all gone, you know, that place I could go to get stuff, that had gone. And I went home and I felt so broke, thinking like, this must be the turning point for me where I stopped, but it absolutely wasn't. Like, I got my friend to phone my biological dad and another guy that I work with now. And they come and got me and took me to a mutual aid meeting. And I'd just gone 22, I think. So I was 22-year-old. Do you know, like, I didn't really want to be in a meeting. That's my honesty. Like, what is this in here? I'm not used to this.
I know you say there, you'd had enough and somebody rang, but you still carried on after that for a little bit, obviously. But that was a big moment, wasn't it? Like, that was a pivotal moment.
Yeah.
Was that the first time you really said help, do you think?
Yeah, because I just thought, I can sort this on my own. Do you know, like, this is just a small problem. It's not that bad. That's what I used to tell myself. And I believed that, mate. I believed it wasn't that bad.
Yeah. Mad, isn't it? What we tell ourselves.
Yeah, and we believe it.
But it's human beings, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
we can, and I say this all the time, life is just stories. Whatever story you want to create for your belief in that time, it's not that bad, this. Could be much worse.
Yeah.
When you look back now, that served you though, didn't it? To tell you that, it served you because it meant you could be in the safe space.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's okay because I'm in the chaos. I know it's chaos, but I'm okay in it and I can live in it and I'm probably surviving it. And being able to survive is probably the only thing I need to do now is survive. And through all that journey, it's like, when you look back, it's mental what we put ourselves in. But then I also talk about stories of recovery and what do you want your life to be? Where do you want to go? Because actually, that's just another story.
Yeah,
and if you
yeah.
tell yourself that story, it can become reality and that can become your new safe space.
Yeah.
And that's all it is, isn't it? Because whatever the story is that we tell ourselves is generally what we want to live out, generally, most of the time. If you want to talk yourself like a piece of shit, you'll end up feeling like a piece of shit.
Yeah.
You want to talk yourself in a much positive, better way, you'll have a much better, more positive life.
Yeah.
And it's stories we create. And I hear loads of different people in recovery share different stories and have different belief systems attached to them stories. But I always believe that the story comes first before the belief. A lot of people say your beliefs dictate what your story is.
Yeah.
But actually, if you start telling yourself something enough times, you manage to change your belief.
Yeah, yeah.
And people say it was like, well, you can't change your beliefs. They're ingrained in you. They're who you are. And I was like, well, I believed in Santa.
Yeah.
And I don't anymore.
Don't anymore.
So my belief system changed. And that's the top and bottom of it. You can change your belief system
Yeah.
by telling yourself something and having a different outlook or perspective or learning something new or going down a route of educating yourself or, listen to other people. Or, so many different ways to do it, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely.
And I think what you've shared there is that belief system at that time allowed you to be in that space and survive because you're still here today, which is a miracle in itself probably,
Yeah.
For somebody like the journeys that we've been on. Just to sit here now gives you another opportunity to create a new story.
Yeah, definitely.
Currently doing that now, aren't you?
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
trying to change, I'm still trying to change my belief system because if I'm honest, I still have a funny little belief system in some areas. Old behaviours don't die fast.
Definitely
Take
not.
a little while. Do you know?
Yeah. And I bet it shows up in lots and lots of different ways.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think back to my 2.5, 3 years in recovery. And I sit here now saying, Richie can sometimes still be a twat.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Still can.
It shows up, doesn't it? And it's now knowing the difference that actually I don't need to act out on this
Yeah.
all the time. Sometimes I still need to act out, if I'm brutally honest, though, Poppy, because
Yeah.
I've got to release. I've got to let something out sometimes. So
Yeah.
I can still be a twat, but I probably catch it a lot quicker. I
Yeah.
don't go down the route of destruction, let's say. Tell us some of the things what you find difficult now that you're in recovery still.
God, living life on life's terms. Like the normality. So obviously my little girl got took off me. And when she come home, which took me a little court battle, because obviously I didn't, they say you can't get clean for your kids, and I believe that that's my story, I couldn't get clean for her. I'd jump off a bridge for her. They told me to, because I love her that much. Couldn't get clean for her. So one of my biggest challenges in recovery is trying to be an emotional, available man. And I know that sounds, well, it won't to you, but to others, that might sound, well, how can't you? Because I was good at shotting her in the bath and giving her a tea quick, but didn't actually know what she liked to eat. Do you know, I remember going shopping for the first time when they told me I was going to have, unsupervised contact. And she was going to come back home for a couple of hours. And I went shopping and I thought, what does she like to eat? I'd never knew. And that's crazy, that. Do because she lived with me for all them years. But trying to do that is really difficult. Trying to practice that stuff. Having conversations with people. That in itself is a challenge because I just walked around with my head down 24/7. So, I went to go somewhere the other day, right? I connect with these girls who were in this rehab and they needed some clothes, so I'd put it out there and loads of people reached out to me. And I obviously had to go and knock on these people's doors for this stuff. And like, I felt awkward going to the door, like thinking, do I knock with this hand? Do I knock with that hand? That's what was going through my head, and it just reminded me, they're the challenges I face, and they might seem minor, but at the time, they feel really difficult and uncomfortable to do.
Yeah. And them challenges compared to the challenges you used to have in your life, they're like worlds apart, aren't they?
Worlds apart.
But in the moment, they're exactly the same.
Yeah.
Exactly the same. And I think that's what a lot of people don't get with recovery, is like, they're like, oh, your life's so mint, you're doing so well. And I'm like, do you want to come and live it?
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Do you want to come and live in my head for a day and see what it's really like? Because it's not always plain sailing and pink fluffy clouds and the rest of it, is it? Like, it's a challenge.
Yeah. And not only that, we face things, don't we? Like, I faced a few things last year that I thought I might not stay in here. Do you know, like, big things in my life that I thought I might not be able to stay clean through.
Yeah.
That's what's difficult. And when I look too far in the future, that's when it becomes even harder.
Yeah.
Do you know, like, if someone says, oh, this event's on, I think, like...
Can we do this podcast?
Yeah. Should we stay clean for it? That's difficult.
Yeah. So when you got into recovery, obviously it caused a little, what people call their rock bottom. You know, you found yourself in that situation. And I know you said it was like the support networks that you turned to, that you could manipulate, basically, in the past, they weren't around anymore, and you found yourself just completely alone.
Yeah.
Then what happened?
God, then I was on my own. I learned how to survive, because put someone like me in an environment, I'll learn somewhere if I want to stay in it for long enough, you know. So then what happened is things started to get progressively worse, but I was somehow staying in it and finding it still attractive. So I started to use in different places that I wouldn't usually use, like, and use with different people, you know, that were quite scary when I look back now. I mean, I wouldn't have admitted that back then, but I was petrified. Do you know, I was like a little girl in a random flat with all these men and women that had been to jail, thinking, like, how did I get here? Do you know, like, how am I getting out of here? How am I getting home? Things got progressively worse, and more things got taken away. You know, like, I ended up with absolutely nothing, but I had no windows in the house, nothing in it, because I'd sold everything. So I ended up just being left with me and four walls, and I think I had one pair of shoes and there were sliders, and it was winter. Do you know, like, it was degrading. It was a degrading feeling. So once them support networks got took away from me, I got a bit of rock bottom that was needed. And it come really difficult, do you know, like, because then the money had gone. So I had to find different ways. I ended up in debt, left, right and centre. I felt like I was running all the time, running from people in case I bump into him because I owe him money, in case I bump into her because I owe her money. And it was just like a fast sprint through life, not realising that the chaos it was causing in between, if that makes sense.
Yeah, total sense. I think them early days are hard, aren't they?
Yeah.
And I know when we spoke earlier, you mentioned that, like, it took you a while to get clean, but you still kept showing up and kept doing, just being present, just being there.
So my honesty is that I had nowhere else to go. Do you know, like, I didn't want to get clean. That's my brutal honesty. I did not want to, because I was 22-year-old. Like, how can I stop using drugs for the rest of my life? It's all I've ever known. You know, like, what about on a weekend? Or what about Ibiza with the girls that I've always dreamed of? And all them things were taken away, I felt like. But what I didn't realise is I was never going to go to Ibiza with the girls. Do you know?
Not like a normal girl going to Ibiza.
They've all been to Ibiza. They wouldn't even invite me. Do you know? It wouldn't happen, because I know what I'd do. So what tended to happen then is that, like, going through early recovery, I had nowhere else to go. That was my only solution in the end. So the only place I had to go for a hot cuppa was, you know, a mutual aid meeting or Recovery Connections kitchen. And that's what my life become like. The only way I could actually see anyone or let anyone know, you know, I'm still alive, was through that, doing that stuff. So I had to go in the end. And the more I started to hear stuff, the more I started to identify. So little snippets had come, and I think maybe there is something different about me, but I wouldn't accept it. Do you know, like, I really would not accept what was wrong with me.
And I always call that, like, so when I started working in this space, or I started doing counselling with people, and I get really pissed off that actually they come back this next week and they're telling us the same stuff as they told us last week. I'm like, but we spoke about this. Why the fuck have you not done anything about it?
Yeah.
Like, am I a shit counsellor? And it took us a long time, you know, working with my supervisor at the time. And she went, it's not your job. It's not your job. Your job's to plant seeds.
Yeah.
That's it. If you can plant a seed in somebody's head, who knows when it might grow.
Yeah, yeah.
And for me, it was like, like such a pivotal moment. And that's what I'm hearing's happened with you, isn't it? It's like you've been allowed in to this mutual aid meetings or into recovery connections, and they haven't kicked you out because you're not engaging and doing everything. They've just let you be. And every time you've went, there's just been another opportunity for somebody else to plant a seed in your head. And all these little seeds are getting planted, and you're hearing, and you're relating to some of the stuff that you're hearing, and it all starting to paint a new picture or tell a new story.
Yeah.
To yourself. What was so after this has went on for a little while? What was the bit where you went, do you know what it is? I'm going to give this a shot.
I got in a relationship. He was in recovery himself, relapsed, and passed away. You know, sadly, died. And a day later, my little girl's dad had had a motorbike accident. I think I had 90 days clean at the time. And I had all these feelings going on in my body, and I didn't know what to do with them. I had loads of stuff around me, tools that I could have used, phoned someone else, got a bit of help. But I just didn't know how anymore. It's like I'd lost it, so I used. And I woke up the next day, right, and it wasn't like my usual. It was like, didn't want to use again, but didn't want to be here either. And I couldn't work out where I wanted to be. So I went to the only place I knew, which was Recovery Connections kitchen during the day and a mutual aid meeting on a night. And although it was hard and it was like walking through cement, do you know, that's what it was like walking through. But I did it anyway because I knew there wasn't much left for me. I only had this one option. So that was the moment in my life where I clicked, like, it's real. That is going to happen to me. And that's when my life changed, and that was December the 17th. I used through the night. Not to be December the 16th, I used through the night. So then obviously, clean date wasn't the 17th because I'd used through the night, which I was pretty fuming over, like, but obviously it runs through. So I got clean on December the 18th, like a couple of days before Christmas, which was hard.
I imagine that was very hard. Christmas is quite an emotional time, feelings. We've already worked out that you're not very good at dealing with them.
Yeah.
Like, how did you manage that?
I stuck around people who actually wanted me to get well, rather than the ones that were all right seeing me not well. Me parents at the time, like, obviously I'd had 90 days clean and they'd been seeing a difference in me before I used again. So they said I could have contact with my little girl at their house. Now, obviously, I couldn't be honest and tell them that I'd used because they'd cut it off. So I phoned someone and I was like, is this dishonest if I don't say it? And they were like, long as you don't use now, then no, because you're doing it for the right reasons. So I sort of spent it around them. It was dead, like, I was untrusted in their house, do you know, because all they'd ever done is be a thief and other stuff to them, caused them a lot of harm. But they sort of surrounded me, and although they were watching me, it was nice because I knew they cared then a little bit again.
And you probably needed watching.
Yeah, definitely. I was like a loose cannon still,
yeah.
do you know? So yeah, I surrounded myself and I just thought, like, I've always used Christmas to use. Don't need you this year. Do you know, like, it is just another excuse to use Christmas is. 100% is. So I didn't need to use it as an excuse. I'd already used all them excuses. They were gone.
Mm-hmm. Coming into the new year then, that can be quite hard as well.
Yeah.
Everyone's got New Year resolutions. Everybody's got all these big plans, and a few weeks later, it's like, how do we survive? You know, what was it like in those early days? You know, so you done 90 days, you lapsed, then got back on the train, so to speak, heading in the right direction. What was it like them first 6 months?
Hard. Like, everyone, right, used to just surround me and say, like, you shouldn't still be doing that. Because I was still, had my hands in all sorts, you know, like, because I only ever knew how to live that way. I only ever knew how to live a sneaky and devious way. So it was like learning who I was, because I never really knew who I was. So it was pretty hard, because you're constantly getting pulled on your shit. Like, you shouldn't really be doing that. Stop flirting with him, you know. Stop looking at this. Blah, de blah. Wouldn't really watch that if I was you. It's got loads of stuff in, you know, like loads of drugs and that in. You're not helping yourself. Everything was like catch-a moment, so you end up like a ninja in your first 6 months thinking like, watch this, watch that. And before you know it, you think you know it all, full of ego. You know, that's what happened. In the end, I thought, here, I've got this, me. But I just surrounded myself by people who were absolutely willing to tell me, and I was willing to listen. I was willing to listen because I knew I had nowhere else to go. It was finished out there. Do you know, like, 23, and and in recovery, that alone tells me that I clearly can't use successfully if I'm that young and in recovery. So to have to get clean at 23, that was enough.
What was it like for you though? I know you said going into recovery that young, you know, young lass, you know, a life ahead of her, surrounded by mostly older people, I would imagine.
Yeah.
What was it like? That takes a lot of guts to stick around. And you know, when I first went into recovery, it was like, well, I'm not like him, I'm not like her, I'm not like them. Like you must have had that tenfold.
So I used to think, right, I must have another 20 years in me. Do you know, like, because when I used to look at them, I think, if they made it at 40 odd, I can do that. So it used to sort of like be pretty bad for me, to be honest. But then what I needed to remember in that time is that age is just a number, and it doesn't mean that I haven't suffered the same pain or used like these. It just means that, you know, thank God society's got a little bit better. It must have done. For me to be able to get in recovery at that age, society must have got a little bit better to be able to understand, because it's hidden. Drugs and alcohol in younger ages is very hidden, I believe. And that's what I try and do today. Like, I try and reach the younger community 100% because it's so normalised.
Yeah, I think that's so important. There's such a strong message there, because we do look to people like us to relate to them and, you know, their stories and their journeys. The fact that you created that story, that actually society must be better because I've managed to get in here younger than what they did. So maybe it's my purpose in life to now go and carry this message to younger people.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's quite a powerful story in itself, isn't it? That you've been able to turn that real negative, God, nobody's like me here, into a positive and go, well, actually, if there's nobody like me here, it means that I must be the one that needs to take that message and carry that message.
Yeah.
Is that kind of how you see yourself now? Or have I just made that story up?
It's changed, believe it or not. Like, when I look, there's a few now that are coming in young, do you know? And all I do tell them is, because when you're that young like that, you think, it's not for me, this. Like I said, it was like the bingo in there. Do you know, like, it's like being sat with an old biddies. How I felt like a child. Do you know, like, I was still a child, me. I was in a woman's body, but a child inside. So it was really difficult, do you know, because I was so intimidated by women, me. Wasn't by men, of course I wasn't at that time. So I used to just try and surround myself with the men, and they used to push me into women, and I was petrified of them, but they taught me how, they took me up and showed me how to be a woman. Does that make sense? Because I had no, like, adult skills. So I got guided through that stuff. But now, I work with people who are younger, you know, like, I've just been working with, last week, someone who was 17 and wants recovery. It's getting better. That shows me it's improving. So now it's not really that uncommon, but at that time, I knew, I looked around and I was definitely the youngest in that room.
Yeah, I think it wasn't uncommon, or it was uncommon then, in your eyes.
Yeah.
Because you didn't want to see anything other than I was different.
Yeah.
And I think we go on this journey, don't we, where actually, I mean, I can go into rooms now and I can see people in their 20s, in the 30s, in the 40s, and I don't see ages, like you said. I don't see that. I see human beings that want to try and have a better life. Yeah. And like, it's that's just my story that I've created about going into rooms or going into meetings or surrounding myself with people in recovery, because that's the reality. Yeah, people are just here for a better life.
We all identify with something of each other's. So that's the main thing. As long as I can identify with someone, me, and connect with someone else, I don't care what age they are. Do you know, I don't care whether they're 60, 70, 80. As long as they know how I feel sometimes inside, now my head can still work, I'll let them help me. You know, I don't need someone my age, if I'm honest. I don't, because we're all humans who've suffered some trauma, and we can all help each other in some way.
Yeah, and that's a powerful message, isn't it? That we're all just here trying to do our best. And if we can help somebody else on that journey, then probably helps us as well. Yeah. Helps us a little bit. So obviously you're working for Recovery Connections now. Tell us a little bit about your journey in Recovery Connections and what you're doing.
So I'm a harm reduction worker for Recovery Connections.
So what does that entail?
So it's like reducing people from harm while using drugs. So basically going out, you know, giving them clean needles, giving them advice around what they're using. Now, for me, I'm going to be dead honest. Like, if someone said, like, because I have to say, you know, I'd be careful mixing them two. It go in one ear and out the other, but it's not about that for me. What I see happening is then they become to connect. they become to connect with you and start to get used to seeing you, like, oh, Poppy's coming here again today. And they say, oh, Poppy, I've heard you work for this place, can I come there? And that's how it starts. So, yeah, harm reduction's really, it's a really vital part of recovery. I believe it's where it all starts with some people. But moving on from that, even if they don't listen to your advice around that, reducing themselves from harming, mixing drugs, they get to connect with someone who's lived experience, and that's the big of it all. I get to tell them, like, I've been where you've been. I know what you were probably feeling like some days, because I feel the same. And that's amazing in itself. So, yeah, harm reduction, it's definitely a big part of people's recovery journeys. It's where a lot of people come through.
And I think when I first heard about harm reduction when I got in recovery, I was like, but people are still using drugs.
Yeah.
This is a bit, it doesn't make sense to us. And then you start learning about it, and you start learning about the fact that actually it allows people to connect, it allows people to see success stories, it allows people to have a bit of hope and all of that stuff. And what you're actually doing, go back to me being very early in my counselling days, planting seeds, aren't you?
Yeah.
That's literally what harm reduction is can I plant some seeds here with whoever, and hopefully somebody gets it at some point.
Yeah. So I was volunteering doing it at first. I volunteered for like 6 months, and my manager now, because I used to say drama follows me. So I'd said to him, we'd went in the room and we had like this initial meeting, before he let me volunteer. He wanted to sit down and talk to me, and I thought, I wonder what he wants to talk to me about, because I hated all that, mate. And he sat me down, he was like, you can't bring no drama. I was like, what do you mean, drama follows me? It's not me who has drama. And he was like, no, you bring it with you. It follows you because it's you. And I was thinking, he's cheeky, him. I don't even want to help him now, But I listened to that, and that sat with me, because I was so attracted to chaos. So I started to volunteer and learn some boundaries. I learned his boundaries that day. That taught me to then put boundaries in from my side. I learned to stop gossiping a little bit. Little bits of things started to grow in me in that volunteer process, which I believe was the whole reason why I ended up with a job. And then I did an ambassadors programme, which taught me loads of stuff about professional side of things, which, if I'm honest, I'm not that interested in when it comes to the professional side of things, but you just have to do it. So, yeah, that was good. That was a good thing to do, because it learnt me about boundaries and confidentiality and stuff that I'd never been taught and I never knew, to get me prepared. And then I got given like a bankroll. So they used to just for me when I used to go in for shifts. And I used to forget and think, like, they're only using me. And forget, like, how good's that I get to go and actually work in a service, lived experience, and they know all that. They know all them facts about me,
Just be you.
Yeah, and just be me. Like, I could just be me, my authentic self, and that was nice, because it was safe. That was now my safe, just being able to be myself. Or hold my hands up and say, I actually don't know what I'm doing here. Rather than be scared to go and tell someone, I don't know what I'm doing. And then I went on an interview and they gave me that job. So it was the best thing, and I'm still doing it now, and I absolutely love it. I love being out there on the streets with people like me who I can talk to, give my time of day to, get their time of day for 10 minutes and identify with one another. Get them into the building where I work from, to get into groups, support them in that way, give back what I was given to me, because that's what was given to me, all that stuff.
Yeah, and, that whole journey that you've been on, you've managed to do all them things, which is credit to yourself, but also you've done all them things without using the things that you've always used to get through all them situations. And that's the bit that's hard, isn't it?
Yeah, because it's real life, isn't it?
New coping strategies. What might be some of them coping strategies that you've got now that you didn't have in the past?
I'll ask someone me. So if I know someone thinks or feels like me, I'll say to them, what do you do? And that's the best gift I ever got, that. The ability to be able to be honest with others and be willing to ask them. Because I always knew better. I always go off my own advice, which ended up really bad. Because my own advice still at this day to myself isn't great. I started to allow myself to have a second thought process. And I still think now, so say if I'm having an argument with my partner, it's just a little disagreement, I'll think, God, could just do with 10 of something to deal with this. It's still a first thought.
Yeah.
But my second thought tells me everything will go. You'll lose everything. And then I don't do it. So I wait for the second thought to come in, which sometimes takes a little while, especially when I'm in that fog,
Yeah.
But I'll go and ask anyone for help. Anyone who I think will help me, I'll ask, because what better than being able to say, listen, my hands are up, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, totally. Do you know, something that was said to me, because I used to struggle to ask for help, massively struggle. And somebody said, well, Richie, you're denying somebody the opportunity to feel good about themselves.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? How am I, me asking for help? How's that going to help somebody else feel good about themselves?
Yeah.
And then I started helping people and I was like, I get it.
Yeah.
I get that now because, and on one of the other podcasts I was talking about, like, when I help somebody, I get a rush of dopamine. I get a dopamine hit because I see them making progress. So that was what I was denying somebody else by not asking them for help. And when it was put to me like that, I was like, oh, well, I'll just ask everyone because it's giving them a chance. Do you know what I mean? I'm being the good guy now because I'm asking you for help. And that would, like, again, change the story.
Yeah.
The story was nobody wants to help you. Everybody wants to help you because it helps them feel good about themselves. And once I got that, it was like a massive like light bulb moment for me just to be able to be vulnerable, ask for help, put myself into situations that I probably wouldn't normally because I didn't think I could survive in them on my own. But actually I didn't need to because I could ask somebody for help. And that whole journey was like huge for me. And it is one of the joys of recovery, I think, is that if you're vulnerable and you're honest, you get vulnerability and honesty back tenfold.
Yeah, and getting vulnerable, that's a gift. Do you know, getting vulnerable is a gift. I hate feeling vulnerable. Hate that feeling still because I go back to that child that was lost again, do you know. But actually, getting vulnerable has got me in some better places in time. That's what my evidence shows me, you know, having the ability to get vulnerable and say, like, this is how I'm feeling or this is what my thinking is. It's been able to move me on in my recovery just touches at a time. But them little touches make me feel better afterwards.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's a lot of people talk about clean time. And I think that clean times, I don't have a problem with counting your days or your years and all that sort of stuff. Celebrate it, of course. Celebrate every success that comes your way. But I don't necessarily think it means you've got good recovery or you've made good progress. Or, you know, I think what does is the ability to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
The ability to be vulnerable, understanding yourself, raising your self-awareness. They're all the things that I think improve your recovery and then therefore will improve your life. Just not using.
Yeah.
Just isn't enough sometimes, is it?
No, like I come to a clean time birthday there in December and I'll be dead honest, I want to die. Didn't know where, because I was left again thinking, how have we got here? Why did we even get here? Do you know, and like, it doesn't matter what you've got at that time, whether you've got this under your belt or that under your belt, your feelings can still be the same, but it depends on what you're going to do about it. Do you know, and I remember just thinking and like reaching out and saying, has anyone else felt like this before? And they were like, yeah, it's completely normal. Because it come then, it was like it landed like, it's getting pretty serious this, you've been in this a little while, you know. You know, you've been out of your normal life. Cause that's what I see it as, my old normal life. For a little bit of time here, I think you're getting a bit too comfortable, do you know. And
it's scary as well though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you're like, well, what's the next year hold for us?
But what I can say is that opportunities has just flung my way over time. You know, doors have opened and sometimes I've gone 10 steps back. But there's always like the forward where in that life that I was living, there was never no forward. There was always back and deeper in that cellar. Do you know, I can't even count how many layers of that cellar I hit in the end. But I can say that in my time in recovery, although it gets difficult, you know, with just life on life's terms, dealing with people in itself. Because I'd rather be away from people, me. Like, do you know, I'd rather just hibernate away from humans. But over time, it does get better and it can go 10 steps back. But there's always a solution somewhere with someone. You know, the solution lies with each other. I do believe that. Even if you're like reading something and you identify with it. I would never use a drug and think, oh, I'll read a book and see if I can identify what's just gone on for me. But I do in recovery. Do you know, I absolutely do.
So what's the big tools in your toolbox now that massively help you on your journey?
So my connection with other people. That saves me that. Being able to connect with other people. Working in an organisation where people are very much like me. Do you know, and I can say I'm struggling here. My family's a big one. Do you know, like the support that I get off them today and they absolutely worship the ground I walk on now. Like they're not scared when I'm in their house anymore. You know, they're at peace. So they're the three main things that I make sure I keep 100%. And not only that, like, so the gym, believe it or not, like, the gym's a bit of my mental capacity first thing on the morning before work. Being able to go there, have a little bit of time to myself, process whatever's going on that day. Because I haven't got a good processing stage. Takes me a bit of time. That sets me up there. So them things there, they keep me going.
Yeah, and what you're doing there is creating space for yourself, isn't it? Creating space just to work out where you go and what you're doing, having a bit of clarity.
Yeah.
Because in the past, we never give ourselves time, would we? It would be 100 mile an hour. And even if we weren't actually moving at 100 mile an hour, our head was.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're saying to me, get up on the morning, go to the gym, just creates that little bit of space for us. So then actually when I do leave the gym, I'm in a better frame of mind. I know where I'm going. I know what I'm supposed to be doing that day most of the time, although we probably still wing it. So that's part of life, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's part of life. The other things I heard you say there that are in your toolbox are important are connection. Find your tribe. You know, you found your tribe. I use that all the time. And I think it's so important that you do find people. You said very early on in this podcast, when you were still kind of rattling a little bit and you just kept going recovery connections and being in the kitchen and putting yourself around them people rather than the other people who didn't want to see you do well.
Yeah.
That environment's just so important, isn't it?
It carried me.
Yeah.
You know, it carried me when I couldn't carry myself because...
But still carrying you now, isn't it?
Yeah, because I didn't know that. I thought I'll never be able to get through a withdrawal, you know, like of them tablets because it was really difficult. And they like encouraged me and led me on, like, just do it for one more day. I said, what about next week? Just do it for one more day. So I think, right, one more day, then tomorrow I'm going to have to do it again, use again. And they used to say, so why don't you come in here first thing? There's a group on. So I'd come in and I'd sit, I'd disturb the full group. Do you know, like I knew the answer to everything back then. I obviously didn't, but me, just being me, knew the answer to everything. And I remember someone said, why don't you just have a listen up to what other people are saying and see if you can identify? And I was thinking, no, it's all about me. But they never ever turned me away is what I'm getting at. I never got shamed. I never got like sent out. I was always allowed back in, and that kitchen become like my little safe like place to go while I was going through that withdrawal, to be around people who were safe, so I didn't have to run and use again to get rid of it. Do you know?
Yeah, definitely. And then the other thing, family. Obviously, you shared a little bit of, you know, your upbringing and the chaos that you went through in them early days. What's it like now, being around family?
So my biological dad's in recovery. So we have like, it's strange, you know, he would say this as well, we don't have like a father and daughter relationship, but we like best friends. Do you know, and that's all I ever wanted. Me two brothers who I was brought up with, one's just got in recovery, so that's great. And that was obviously come through me and my biological dad, so there's the power in that. So I have good relationships with them. And then like my mum and dad who brought me up, they asked me to do stuff for them now. Do you know, like I don't need them to do anything for me apart from be there. Do you know? And obviously my little girl, we have a great relationship. I put 100% effort into when I go in, I dedicate that my phone goes away because that can be another thing that, you know, like forget the drugs, they're gone for now. Do you know? But I can pick my phone up and forget who's around me and just sit on that for hours. That'll be another thing. So practicing putting that down, I've had to learn that. But we have a great relationship and I'm able to like show her, you know, she was naughty at school a couple of weeks ago and I says, what's happened? And she said, well, I punched the chair. And I said, right, why? And she said, because the teacher told me I'd done my work wrong. My first thought was to tell her, that's what you should have done. Do you know, like, 'cause that's how I knew.
Stick up for yourself.
And I was like, it's not the right way. Like, that's not going to get you your work done. And she was like, I know, Mammy, but I'm probably going to do it again next week. I was like, that's all right. We'll have to deal with it when it comes. And to be able to do that, do you know, and not like encourage you, because I was brought up encouraging, like, if someone hits you, you hit them back. And to be able to sort of sweep away from that bit by bit and change that way of life and show this one. Because whether she goes to substance use or she doesn't, she's got someone who's here and has found a new way of life and a new way of communicating just for now. But I might be able to show some ways when she gets older to be able to deal with what life's like.
Powerful, isn't it? And we talk about the ripple effect of recovery. We talk about the ripple effect of addiction and how bad that can be through society, families, all the rest of it. But that ripple effect of recovery is so much more powerful, I think. Because like you say, you know, you've got a better relationship with your dad, your brothers are coming into recovery, your daughter's now got a mum who's present, a mum who she can turn to, she can get support from, she can hopefully get hope and inspiration from for the future. And actually, if shit does come along, she knows she's got someone to turn to.
Yeah.
Power of recovery, I think, Poppy, which is a massive message of hope and inspiration. I just want to thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing with us today, because I know it's not easy, but you've done it.
Thanks for asking me.
Cheers for your time. Thanks.
Thanks.
For listening to the Recovery Toolkit podcast. If you took something positive from it, then why not subscribe? If you or somebody you know has been suffering gambling-related harm, why not head over to our website where you can join our community? The link is in the show notes.